like to welcome everyone to the July meeting of the Winnsboro Economic Development Board of Directors, and I will call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. We will start with a roll call to my right to ensure quorum. Carl?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
Marcia?
Here.
Steve?
Present.
Jim?
Present.
Andrea? Here. And Jen Mills, I'm present. Let the record reflect, we do have a quorum. We are 100% here tonight, so thank you all for being here and giving of your time to give back to the city. So if y'all would please, we always start our meetings with a prayer and a pledge to both the American and Texas flags. So we'll rise, and Jim Hollowell will pray for our meeting.
Father, we thank you for another day you've given us and all your blessings that go with it. We just thank you for this opportunity to come together as a community to deliberate on the business of Winnsboro, and ask that you give us the knowledge and the wisdom we need to make the proper decisions for the good of the whole. And these things we pray. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Our first item on the agenda this evening is our staff reports. We have a Main Street program. I don't see Brenda here, so would you like to give a synopsis of their very busy month to us?
I don't know Brenda's report. I can't give you that, but she did ask me. She wasn't sure she's going to be able to be here because YOLO was in town this afternoon, and so she was doing some filming with them. But she did ask that I give you an update on the TCA grant. We are moving forward with that. All the contractors are on board to get that done by the end of the month. And as of right now, we are have no concern of having to give the money back. There's been some talk out there that we're going to have to give it back, or we're not going to be able to see this through. As of right now, I have confirmation from the contractors. They're all on board with getting it done within our time frame. And we are looking pretty good on budget as well.
Do you have an August 1 or an August 31 deadline? Okay, good.
Yeah, August 1 would be a different conversation.
Okay, good.
So that's all I have for that.
Okay. I think Brenda has also submitted a pretty extensive report of all of their activities. Looked like they had some very major events that were happening within the month, and I won't bore everyone by reading that. I will let you peruse her report at your leisure. And we will move on to the public comment section of the agenda now. I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for your interest in the happenings of the WEDC and for attending our meeting tonight. We appreciate you. We appreciate your interest, and thank you for being here. No one has signed up to request to speak, but if there is anyone who would like to address the board, you do have 3 minutes that you can talk on any subject that's not on the agenda or just not able to address or answer any questions regarding those items. So is there anyone? Okay. We'll move on to item 6, consent items. You have your financial report and the minutes from our June meeting that are available. Thanks to Holly, our finance director, and to Mackenzie for getting these to us, and even have some nice graphs regarding sales tax snapshots. We are continuing to trend behind our 2022 fiscal year sales tax revenues. Actually, we're a little better in June. We were only lagging about 9%. We were as high as an 18.5% lag in April. Started off October and November on a strong note. 17% ahead of prior year, and 6.1. And then we have fluctuated with a negative trend since. Fiscal year to date, we're running about 5.6 behind last year's totals.
In my humble, the financial report, of course, they mean different things to different people at different times, depending on what we're doing here. And I'm just curious, from the consent standpoint, these items are all items that are influenced by the EDC or that the EDC has involvement in on all of these?
These are all within our budget.
Okay. This is basically our budget?
Yes,
then,
this is
the EDC.
our budget.
Okay.
This is our small portion of the
Of
city's budget.
Those respective items?
Yes.
Okay.
If you would make special note of the last page, that was something that McKinsey has added to our report at our request, especially the last section. Just gives us a snapshot of what was in the budget for our grants and funds for special projects and prior year commitments and advertising and other funds that we have available to give to various projects, events, and others. It shows what our year-to-date expenses are and then what we have remaining that are available for request and for use as those requests come before the board. So, very helpful tool. Does anybody have any questions about the financial report or the minutes? Hearing none, could we entertain a motion?
I move that we accept the financial report and minutes as presented.
We have a motion to approve the financials and minutes as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting those consent items?
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, motion carries. You may notice that you've got things popping up. Our system, it looks like it's working tonight, so if you actually made the motion, push. If you seconded, if you'll push the second, and then everybody can vote electronically. We're fancy tonight. Okay. Moving on to item 7. That motion did pass 100%. Moving on to item 7, we will be combining, somehow the budget discussion for fiscal year 2023-24 got twice under our presentation discussion and or action items, so we will be combining 7.2 and 7.4 so that we don't have to have two discussions on that. But we will begin tonight with item 7.1, special presentation by the Retail Coach Recruiting Services. We would like to welcome their team here, and we'll just, if you would state your name and your address and their affiliation with Retail Coach Recruiting Services.
Should be glad to. I'm Kelly
Thank you.
Kofer. I'm CEO and founder of the Retail Coach.
I'm Caleb Wilson. I am a retail recruitment specialist with Retail Co.
Thank you.
So McKinsey and board, we appreciate the opportunity to present our firm to you and what we do and how we may be able to help Winnsboro. I will say I have some ties to the area. My dad was born here. His parents moved here, I think, when they were quite young, but I grew up in Corsicana, so driving in and seeing, and we were in the cattle business, by the way, so seeing them cutting and baling hay east of town brought back a lot of memories.
Maybe bad ones if you worked the hayfield.
Do what?
It may be bad ones if you worked the hayfield.
Well, you know, it's really, it brought back one memory that I had when I was probably 16 years old, and I was raking hay, had hay fever, sneezing, maybe not as hot as it was now, but hot, thinking, is this really what I want out of life? And I mean, I remember as if it were yesterday, and I kind of thought, no, I kind of want to do something different, and I did something different. But now looking back on it, those were really, really good days that I wished I had the experience and knowledge to appreciate them a little bit more. But I have a company now, the Retail Coach, and what we do is we recruit retail for municipalities and economic development organizations. And, you know, we identify the retailers that we think will fit your community, and we go out there on your behalf and recruit them. And our job is finished when we are able to locate them to your community. And we, as the name implies, we feel like we coach our clients to be self-sufficient from the standpoint of retail economic development. When I started this thing in 2000, retail was not considered economic development. And fast forward to today, and most communities, you know, have some level of retail recruitment initiative as part of their economic development strategy. You know, we've worked in you know, excuse me, 40 states across the country. Texas, because I'm here and my network is really good, is certainly our dominant and most busy state. We do about 65% of our business here. And, you know, we've worked in 650, 700 communities across the country. And we do 90% repeat business in those communities. And it's quite easy. We just do what we say we're going to do. And everything seems to take care of itself. So my background is I went to Texas A&M, and when I graduated, I moved to Dallas, and I worked as a retail broker. And what I did is I found sites for retailers and restaurants in towns like yours across the state. And one of my clients asked me if I would like to go to work in their corporate office doing it across the country. And I thought, well, yeah, giving me the ability to do site selection across the country and, you know, take a step forward. And I certainly did that, but I had to move to Tupelo, Mississippi. And gosh, you know, in a blur, I'm still in Tupelo, Mississippi, and worked a number of years for that firm, and then started the Retail Coach, because what I found is a lot of communities were really, really good at industrial recruitment, but really at the time didn't understand the things involved in recruiting retail. So I took my experience from working for the national retailer and started the Retail Coach. And I want to go through a little bit about our process. And, you know, if you have a question along the way, stop me. I'll be glad to address it, but I want to view this kind of as a workshop. I was able to take a look at your community. I got here an hour and a half early, so I know the community fairly well, so I look forward to maybe some very, very specific questions you may have. But first thing we've got to do is we've got to understand how you relate to competing communities. If it be Sulphur Springs, Quitman, Pittsburgh, Mount Vernon, Mount Pleasant, we've got to understand from your population standpoint, as well as the base of retail that you have, how do you compete? Because again, what we're going to ultimately do is come up with a list of retailers that we think will fit in Winnsboro and go out there and recruit them. You know, we've worked in Mount Pleasant, you know, a few times, and we've been engaged with Pittsburgh for a number of years and been successful there. But again, you know, what makes your community different? And if we're able to get someone that we've located in Pittsburgh to look at Winnsboro, how are we going to sell you? So a lot of our work comes into fully understanding the community and how we're going to ultimately sell you to the retail community. So what I did really quickly is I looked at your market from the standpoint of what we call submarkets. Those are, you know, you've got 3,500 people, but you've got your downtown area. You know, I think you've had a Main Street program in place since 1981, and you know it looks to be very well occupied. The business that you have there, and then you have, you know, at Coke and Main Street, sort of what I would call your main and main or for retail, and that's mainly because of Brookshire's. You know, they pretty much set the standard because they're your largest draw at this point of bringing people from outside of the community, maybe outside of the county, to the marketplace. So we've got to fully understand the dynamics of your retail market, because we're ultimately going to have to find places for these retailers to go. So One of the things that we do is we do a cellular phone analysis. Have you heard of how you could use a cellular phone to track where customers are coming from? So-
Geofencing?
Do what?
Like geofencing kind of thing?
That's a part of it. So if you see this graphic, you know, you'll see that pop up on your smartphone from time. Will this tilt any? So when you see this pop up on your smartphone, you're being tracked. They know where you are, and they know where you're going, and they know where you reside in the evening time. So how we use this is that we can go and we can look at various retailers, and we can see where people are driving in from to shop at that specific retailer. In this situation is Tractor Supply. And this quick map shows you clusters of population that are driving in and shopping at that Tractor Supply. Very valuable when we're trying to get the interests of a retailer to be able to show them. Because ultimately what we're going to determine is the retail trade area. And that, quite honestly, is how far people are driving in to shop. It's not 3,500 people. It's not necessarily 40,000 in the county. It's, you know, it's how far actually people are driving in. So we look at your main retailers in town to determine this level of data. It takes the guesswork out of it. I mean, you know, it is what it is. It's probably 99 to 100% accurate. So knowing this level of information is really key in us understanding your market and understanding the retailers that we're going to recruit for you. And from a Main Street standpoint, think about how the merchants that are in the Main Street area can use this information to fully understand where their customers are coming from. And I would grant you, based on our experience, not all of them know that. So all of this data that we're going to be able to provide to national retailers to get them to look at your market, we can use in your existing retailers as well. And it's very, very key for your local merchants. So this is Tractor Supply. I did it as well for McDonald's. And you can see from one to the other how it changes. And for your McDonald's, they average 56,000 customers a month that have their cell phones. When they're driving through the drive-through or they're going into the dining area, 56,000 a month, or roughly 620,000 a year. So how we use that, we're talking to other quick serve restaurants about maybe looking at sites in the market, if it be Whataburger, if it be whoever. This is the level of data that they want. They want to know how McDonald's is doing. And in the quick serve business, usually McDonald's is the first to the market. And then other ones kind of go to school on how they're doing business, and then they will follow. So this is how we will use this data. And I also looked at I had Brookshire Brothers, that was a mistake, but Brookshire's. And quite honestly, they have an incredible draw. You know, from Mount Pleasant to, you know, to Pittsburgh to Mineola. And I went and spoke to their manager this afternoon and said, look, you know, I've looked at the data on where your customers are coming from. I just wanted to confirm with them because, quite honestly, this is really a large draw area and really an apple, you know, that we're going to use to get the attention of other retailers and restaurants. So this is a broad area. And from what I'm understanding is they just do a good job at selling groceries. You know, they remodeled recently, you know, they're very customer service oriented. All those little things that we used to take for granted that we don't see very often now, they're continuing to do. So huge asset for you. And they're at ground zero from the standpoint of location. Every retailer or restaurant that we speak to, they're going to be as close to those guys as they can get because they know that they're bringing in a lot of people from out of town. So what we do, in order to determine that retail trade area, you can see we will come in, and I just did it, we will draw a map around the highest concentration of people, and we'll determine how many people are in this area. And then you've got a secondary trade area that includes a much broader area that we would use as well. again, all this information is what retailers really look at initially to determine if they need to come to the market or not. Does this make sense?
Can I ask a probably really dumb
No, it
question?
won't be done.
Okay, off of my cell phone,
Uh-huh.
when it's locating, is it using this, the zip code or whatever off of my bill, off of where my phone number is?
Exactly where your phone is,
or
the
where-
latitude and longitude of where your phone is. Which, to some people, are really scarce, you know, but,
We're probably some of those little dots in there somewhere, depending on what day.
yeah, you chime in if you want to.
It can go so far as you can come from your home location or your work location, because sometimes, you'll pop up and say, you're going to work, like that's for me. It'll know where you're working, so we can trigger it to say, are these people coming from their work location or coming from the home location? So it can get a little bit further down the road, so.
But it's not, it's,
very
yeah,
predictive.
we don't have the capabilities of going, like, drilling down, like you see in this Mission Impossible movies, from the satellite down to, we're watching you in your yard, that's not what its capability, but within a half a block, I think, is what its accuracy is, which is quite accurate. And again, when I started in the business, retailers looked like, how many people live within 5 miles of the site or the town? Well, that is, in a rural market, that's just not the case, because people have to drive great distances to shop if they want something, so retailers have been slow to embrace what the rural consumer, chooses to do in order to get groceries, go out to eat, or do whatever. So in your situation, it's really key to look at not just the primary area, and that's where you get about 85% of your business. And that secondary is where they might come in not quite so often, maybe once a week, once a week and a half or 2 weeks. But again, it tells a picture of where your customers are coming from.
So is that map like over a so many day period, or
Yes,
one snapshot in time, or?
Yeah, this particular one I did, for example, was over the last 30 days. And we typically will look at the patterns over the last 12 months. We want it to be as current as possible. And I looked at the previous 6 months, and it really does not change one bit. So, anyway, if nothing else, having the retail trade area information from an EDC standpoint is key if you're working with a prospect, because you want to sell yourself not as 3,500 people, but your trade area, which may be 30,000, whatever it ends up being, which is a game changer, huge game changer.
Question.
Yes.
So if you was to, let's take Whataburger, for instance. If you took a Whataburger like in Sulphur Springs, could you tell me how many people from Winnsboro
Yes.
go to that location?
You can cross-engineer it. We can do, and we do this a lot of times with small businesses as well as national brands. We can do it in Pittsburgh or anywhere. We can look at how many people, because they're loyal to Whataburger, Whataburger is like Starbucks to some. Yeah. So you'll be able to see how the out-migration
Okay.
from here. And again, that's key too, once we get across from Whataburger and telling that story, telling that story. So once we have the retail trade area, and let's just say there's 30,000 people in there, we can tell what they're spending monthly on about 70 different categories, fast food being just one of them. I will say this, and this is one of the things that we have to always be careful with in smaller communities, is there is a mix of retailers and restaurants that will look closely at your community. Primarily, it's going to be eateries, it's going to be restaurants, in all honesty. So, we've got to make sure that your expectations are in line with what the realities are in what we're doing. You're not going to get an Applebee's or a Chili's. You know, you've got to create, you've got to create more of a market before it starts expanding along those lines. You know, I just, you know, I don't want to oversell the situation. I think in your case, if, you know, 3 to 4 successes will be a home run for you. And, you know, Whataburger.
Sorry, what do you mean by 3 to 4 successes?
I'm talking about someone locating here being a success. You know, if it be a Whataburger, Taco Bell, whatever, that would be a success.
Okay.
Do you have any in mind already?
Yeah, you know, I would say, in my looking at your market, I think everyone who's located in Pittsburgh could look at duplicating in Winnsboro. So you look at the list there, I know we helped them get a Whataburger there. That's just one, but there are a lot of retailers that are looking at smaller communities. It's just, you know, it's just a numbers game. You know, they're not going to do anything unique in Winnsboro that they wouldn't do in Sulphur Springs or Mount Pleasant. But, you know, we feel like we have a great opportunity to land 3 or 4 in your community. But
When that list starts to build, when we get to that point, it would be a mix of regional, you know, duplicates or ones that aren't even in the market, but they're around, you know, maybe 30, 40 miles away, but we know that they could be here for a specific reason that compares to the analysis that we've done. So it's
so
not
it
just
could-
a random list, and I just don't want you to think that we're gonna reach out to, you know, like you said, just a large list, a bunch of blanket emails, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but,
I think franchises, you know, they are growing like crazy now, but again, you know, one of the things about that is they may say, we're interested, but can you find us a franchisee? And that's always more difficult in a smaller community. So what we do is that's why we go to a Pittsburgh or to a Mount Pleasant or Sulphur Springs. And if there's a franchisee there for, you know, Fox's Pizza as an example, then they're more apt to look at a duplicate in Winnsboro than somebody from out of Dallas, if that makes sense, just from a proximity standpoint. So we will be looking at sort of corporate-owned locations as well as franchises.
What are the qualification indices for what you would say would be a match?
I'm sorry?
What are the qualification indexes for what you would say would be a match for us?
So I think it's ultimately going to come down to what that 30,000 population number is. I think you're looking at, you know, most of the fast food guys as a potential for you. I think there's a clothing store that has a Mount Pleasant location called Factory Connection that typically likes to go into smaller communities. I think they're a prospect for you.
How do you qualify those? That's kind of what I was, that's what I was looking
Yeah,
at.
okay, I'm sorry. It's based off of something called I don't think I have it in this presentation, but every retailer has their location criteria.
Right.
How many people are in the trade area? How much disposable income do they have? You know, ethnicity is key to a lot of them, you know, if it be a high Hispanic origin or whatever. Each of them have their own location criteria. So we, through the cell phone analysis and all, we're coming up with who you are. And then we
Right.
match it to the retailer's location criteria. That's the way we first come up with our hit list.
So you gathered basically their factors that they're looking for and searching for?
Absolutely. You know,
Okay.
we've been doing it long enough. We kind of know.
You bet.
You know, and plus we know a lot of the site selectors, so we can call and say, hey, you know, this Brookshire's in.
Kelly, I get you to use the microphone,
okay.
that way those that are listening online.
Okay, I'm sorry.
hear as
But,
well.
you know, a
Thank
lot of, you know, Brookshire's, you really need to look at this market. It's a smaller market, but this Brookshire's is bringing in, you know, 50,000, you know, customers a year or whatever. So we've got to get in that position to fully understand you, marry you up to their location criteria, and then we sell you based on our knowledge
Yeah.
of the market.
Are you're specifically retail, or do you get outside of that bubble, any, like over
You know,
into some industrial or anything
Yeah,
of that nature?
We've had some opportunities, but we typically will stay in the retail lane.
Okay.
I mean, I looked at your industrial, you know, you got light industrial area, you've got the heavy out there by the cell barn, and, I mean, just because I've been in the business so long, I've done a lot of industrial deals, but if I could help out in any way, I'd be glad to. But the retail coach, we kind of stay in that retail lane.
I think it'd be nice if we get bowling out at our airport, so.
So, you know, like I mentioned, if there's 30,000 people in the trade area, we know what they're spending on groceries, we know what they're spending on all of these different goods. All very, very important when we're talking to retailers about locating here. You know, and we do that through what we call a retail demand analysis. So we understand who you are, so we can match you to the retailer or the restaurant. And then the other key thing is, once we have them interested, where are we going to put them? You know, where can we get the real estate? If it be an acre of land that we can really, you know, have that concrete conversation with Whataburger. So one of the things that we do is we spend a great deal of time looking at all of the available sites in your market. And what I did just really quickly, and again, this is sort of a wish list, you know, that I came up with. I don't know any of these owners. I don't know the history of any of these businesses. I went and looked at them personally today, but anywhere that you can locate around a signalized intersection, the better off you are. Because again, it controls the traffic. So what I looked at Main and Coke is some options. If you could go in there, and again, a wish list, to assemble properties of a size that could you really make a redevelopment impact. You know, again, they prefer to be at a signalized intersection if all possible. And again, you've got a pharmacy here, you've got restaurants, you've got, you know, a number of different things, and you may not be able to do anything near this. But I will tell you this, in 10 years, this isn't the way it's going to look. Somebody at some point is going to come in here and buy these properties up. It's too well located. It's at a signalized intersection. And if we talk about highest and best use in our business, and that's those uses that give you the most sales tax revenue, we don't have it here. But again, it's very consistent with an older, mature community. So we start looking at, you know, a lot of what ifs, where we could possibly put retailers or a small strip development. Here's another one on the southeast corner, you know, just west of McDonald's. And then you've got the assemblage of the various lots there east of McDonald's. Again, I'm starting to think Whataburger. If we had Whataburger in the back seat of our car and we were riding around, what sites would we show them? We've got to have all that done before we even have a conversation with them. Because they're going to say, well, show us where you would put us. So in my quick assessment and driving around, you know, ground zero is at Coke in Maine, then at Walnut in Coke, because again, you have a signalized intersection, you have Brookshire's there. And then you could work yourself north of Coke on Main Street. You know, there's some lots on the north side next to O'Reilly's. Again, I don't know who owns them, if they're available, whatever, but that's what site selectors do. They look at various alternatives in a market, and then they do the research to find out what's available. This is kind of the game plan that we would use if we were engaged with you. And again, I know that this site here is, you know, if that frontage could be available, would be about as far east as they would want to go on Coke. I know you've got the Tractor Supply out on the east side of town that took the old Alco, but it's probably a little far out for what the retailers and restaurants would want, and where they'd want to locate. So once we have this information, we've got to know how to sell you, and we do that from various ways: market profiles, marketing packages. When we go and we have a conversation with a retailer, and this is what Caleb does day in and day out, it's just not enough to say, hey, would you be interested in Winnsboro? They're going to go, where are you going to put us? So we always anticipate what they're looking for and what they need, and we provide it to them before they ask for it. All of these things are part of it. All of these things ultimately need to be on your the city website or the EDC website, because these site selectors do a lot of their work when they're in airports, hotels. They're never going to tell you that they're coming through your market. They're through your market and they're gone. And then they may go back and look at your website. So regardless, if you move forward with the retail coach or someone else, this information needs to be on your website. Again, it's just an economic development tool that really will pay dividends for you. And
Is
again,
that something that y'all help develop?
we do it from A to Z. That is part of what we do, and it's part of what our proposal was to McKinsey. And again, I'm going back to my experience of what I needed to be able to make a quick decision on if I need to get to that market or not. So we provide all of those tools. And this is something that we do for you as well. I mentioned about putting all this stuff on the website. We actually come up with what we call a retail dashboard that sells your community. You know, there would be a tab on the city website or on the EDC website that says retail, and you would go to it. All the reports would be there. It would be a one-stop shop, and very, very valuable for you moving forward. And that's something that we do as part of our program. You know, again, that's kind of mentioned so you're self-sustained or somewhat self-sustained moving forward. And then this is where we talk about identifying the retailers that we think are a match for you, matching that location criteria. And once we come up with what we call the suspects, then we visit with you and make sure that these retailers that we come up with are in line with maybe what you're looking for. You know, I know in a small community, you know, let's just use auto parts as an example. You've got ABC, you've got O'Reilly's, you may have some more that I didn't see. Do you really need another auto parts store? You know, if you do, are you going to bring in more business, or are you just spreading the business out among one more retailer? You don't want to put anybody out of business. We're very sensitive to that. So that's why we come to you. Let's talk about these things. Let's talk about it, because you go to church with them, you know, your kids go to school with them. It's a small market. So we want to make sure that whatever we do benefits everyone. And we're very, very sensitive to that. And then our process, quite honestly, of recruiting them is using our network. We send them the information and we follow up with a telephone call. Why don't you speak to
No,
that?
yeah, I'll give you a breath here. So we'll take all of that and go forward on looking at that match list that we talked about a little bit ago. And then from there, it's, you know, talking with folks that we've already spoken with on the larger brands, and doing it by email, doing it by phone call, a text message. We've got plenty of trade shows and whatnot that we go to. At the end of August, we're going to Retail Live in Austin. A lot of folks there from, you know, various retailers, restaurant groups, and then from there it's just building a relationship, and that's what I enjoy doing, because for some reason I enjoy being an advocate for a community, and this is a great way to use it, and kind of speaking to, you know, the cities and our clients and selling that in whatever way I can. And so if it's something very small as, hey, can you give me a phone number for the city engineer? Happy to. I'll go in links. You know, I'll take a couple hours if I have to just to get there. If it's, hey, I need to connect you to, you know, this site owner, I'm happy to do it. And that's part of my process too. Is you know, I try to build relationships. If I need to have a simple phone call with a local owner, property owner, I'll do it. You know, it's just saying, hey, I'll be the bridge and gap between you and this you know, this potential buyer. You know, and we're just there to be a resource at the end of the day. But this process is not, you know, quick, and these people are traveling all the time, so it could take a very long time to get in front of someone. But it's my job to continue that conversation, stay in front of them, stay relevant, stay valuable. I mean, I think that's a lot of what these folks are looking for too. Is, you know, what value is this going to bring to our business? So if it's, you know, showing us the cell phone analysis, really showing us what it could be, the potential, you know, of what we could be in 5 years, you know, that we're there to do it.
I think point he brought up that's really key is we work very closely with your local realtors and your property owners. You know, we don't compete on fees for real estate commissions on properties. We don't do any of that. But our job is to help facilitate the real estate transaction. And if that's working with the brokers or real estate agents and the owners, that's absolutely what we do. One of the things that's very key to our business and is key to our clients is we post everything in real time regarding our recruitment conversations. So you will all have access to what we call Airtable, where it will show you the retailers that we're reaching out to and where we are in that engagement. If it be, we just sent the first email to, you know, we had a conversation with, you know, Kelly Kofer, and he said this. So every time that there is a recruitment event that takes place for Winnsboro, as an example, it's going to be listed on this. You're never going to have to worry or think about what we're doing. You're going to always see it. And this is something we started doing probably 7, 8 years ago, and really our clients love it. We have monthly meetings, update meetings with our primary contact, or as often as we need. You know, a lot of times if Caleb has had a good call with somebody, he'll call our client and say, hey, you know, they're really interested in this market, and I've shown them X, Y, and Z. So we don't want our clients to ever speculate on what we're doing. We want them to know. He mentioned that we are very, very visible at trade shows. It's a relationship business like anything else. It's a relationship business. So we do all of these things to stay in front of the retailers, restaurants, as well as developers that build in major markets or in smaller markets. So I know we kind of rushed through it. I would love to entertain any specific questions that you may have on our process or any sites that you have in the market. If it be downtown, I'd love to address them.
Are we assigned a Caleb that is our point of contact and
Yes, Aaron Farmer will be the point person, and he is the president of our company. He handles all of our projects in Texas. Mackenzie knows Aaron, and he's been with me 14 years. Caleb will be a part of the team, as well as a lady named Becky Gross, Gross, out of Austin. So you will have a group that is responsible for this job. And one thing a little bit unique about us is, you know, Aaron had to be in Gatesville tonight, and that's why I'm pinch hitting for him. But you know, we don't have salespeople per se. Whoever you deal with is going to be the one working your project.
when you say you have 3 to 4 successes, you would consider it to be a successful program? That's 3 to 4 over a 12-month contract?
Yeah,
Or over?
That's a great question. Our contract is 12 months, and we typically will start our recruitment after 60 days once we do our data analysis. And then we're going to spend the next 10 months, you know, really hitting it hard. And I cannot guarantee you, Jan, that, you know, we're going to have 3 or 4 successes in the first year. But I think that you will have successes come out of this. It may not be in the first 12 months, though. You know, we do, and I don't know if we provided this, but we do provide, you know, the ability for you to exercise an option at a preset price. If we do what we say we're going to do and we have momentum and you want to continue the relationship, then it's at your sole discretion if you do so. We're not going to ask you to sign any more than 12-month engagement. And again, we feel like, you know, it's like I said, I don't want to oversell, but I don't want to undersell as well. I mean, you're a small market, and small markets have to work harder than larger markets do. But again, a lot of times, smaller markets are overlooked, and I think that's where we come in. We find out how to sell you, if it be used Brookshire's or some of these, you know, Tractor Supply. we're quite good at that. And just like you mentioned, the sales tax collections were down. It's very consistent with what we're seeing. We're probably working in 20 states right now with smaller communities that have a little bit of, let's just say their disposable income is a little more limited maybe than larger markets. And it's the inflationary pressures that we're seeing. I mean, I looked at a lot of these retailers that are in your market, and many of them, for a number of different months, they had, their sales were down. So what you said does not shock me. It's very consistent with smaller markets across the country.
I'll mention this too about the contract period. What's also good about when we get to the recruitment phase is you do get a lot of great feedback from these groups. So maybe it's, hey, I need this trade area to be about 10,000 more or 5,000 more, whatever it is. Then you've got things to plan for in the future. And so we've seen that a little bit lately where they talk to us in Q1 of 2024, and then we'll revisit the discussion because we've got something going on in this city that we can't focus on this right now. So even though it may not be a right now, it could be a not right now, and let's revisit it.
That's a very good point from Kayla, because we just don't want to say no to you. Well, so-and-so said no. We want to know why. Because there has been times through the years that there's other things that we could do to change their mind. So again, you know, we ask that next question. Well, if it doesn't work for you today, what can we do to make it work for you next year or whatever? And like you said, it's very valuable.
I see land acquisition for any of these moves probably one of the toughest points in the process. You said you identified 3 or 4 intersections as possible good spots. Do you know how many property owners are in each one of those intersections, or?
I looked them up. For each of those that I highlighted, I looked up the property owners, and there's probably 3 to 5 at each of those
Yeah.
nodes.
And that's the toughest thing in the development process, is finding multiple people, because there's always one that wants to step back and hold everything up for more money or whatever the case may be.
There is, you know, and you know, that's why you got to cast as broad of a net as you can. But like I mentioned, in 10 years, you know, we got sayings in our business that, you know, it's probably a little more of a dimension, but things change over time.
Well, I said that to say from a perspective of development plans and future planning for the prospects of something of that nature. Do you put any kind of plans in place for land acquisition with the city, or suggestions for that in the process of those?
We will absolutely do that every step of the way that we're talking about, because it's just like, you know, one of the things that jumped off the map to me is that, you know, from the standpoint of having just a really good convenience store, larger convenience store, more modern convenience store, where the Valero is on the, you know, in the northwest quadrant of Coke and Main. You know, in a perfect world, you get Valero to buy the building just west that has a realtor office and maybe a doctor, Dr. Pruitt or whatever. Again, I'm in the dreaming business. I mean, we got to think ahead, scrape all of that and build a, you know, knockout convenience store that's co-branded with a restaurant or whatever. You know, those things are going to happen in your market. I mean, in your travels, you see them happening in other markets. It's going to happen in yours. It's just our job is to make it happen quicker.
Yeah. Well, and that's my concern from a land development standpoint. I purchased the only 1 acre tract to a 35-acre, adjacent to a 35-acre tract. That was the only access to that tract without having to go through 20 other people to gain access to it. So needless to say, we worked out a deal in that type of scenario.
Yes, sir.
I just from a logistics standpoint know that that's probably one of the hardest pieces of the puzzle, especially if you're trying to do it on a time frame,
Right.
is trying to make sure those land acquisitions go successfully in the right direction. So
we find it's even more difficult in smaller markets where there's, you know, an affinity to the property for whatever reason, you know, if it's been in the family for years, or, you know, they just don't want to see things change in the marketplace or whatever. But yes, that's a more difficult challenge, no doubt.
yeah.
I appreciate your time. Any other questions?
If we want to reach out to you and have additional questions later, how would we do that?
Well, I'll give each of you a card, and it's got my cell phone on it, and I'll be in Texas all week, and would love to visit with you whenever.
Where are you going to start?
I'm in Tupelo, Mississippi.
You're still okay.
Yes, sir.
You made the version like you left there, so.
No. I left there this morning early, but I will be going back. My
Going
wife and
back,
family
okay.
are there. She'd probably appreciate that.
Do you have family here in Winnsboro?
Actually, no, not any longer. I think my uncle passed away just a few years ago. His name was Jerry Kofer. But we do not, but still have a lot of family within the state, and still around Corsicana and in Houston.
And where are you from?
I'm only 2.5 hours west, so I'm in Auburn, Texas. So, just little area.
And it's worth mentioning that Aaron is in Austin, and Becky is in Austin as well, so not far away. Thank you, and I'm a phone call away. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I believe we have any action to take immediately on this item for information. We do appreciate, especially you making a
Part of what I do.
long trip on
Thank you.
here.
All right.
You gave me two, but these are expensive business cards. Yeah.
Give me that back.
Sorry.
They have 0 interest on
Yeah,
the card.
yeah,
So.
always being cost conscious there, it's like, this is not an inexpensive card there, so. Don't wanna take more than I want.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
No action on this item tonight. Are you wanting me to bring it back again? You want to wait a month to put it back on, or?
Well, I mean, will that be part of a discussion later in the agenda under 7.5, 7.6, or is this a total standalone?
That's up to you all. If you want to table action and bring it back at the end, you can do that, or you can delay it for 30 days. I just kind of needed some direction from the board on what you'd like to see.
Can we move that to 7.5?
So you want to table 7.1, bring it back at the end of the meeting? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Okay. You get a motion?
Need a motion to table?
Motion to table.
I have a motion on the floor
I second.
and a second to table action on 7.1 until later in the meeting. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, item 7.2, we will combine with 7.4 in just a moment, and we will move on to 7.3. Consider action to change regular meeting day. I think that was brought up at last month's meeting, and we asked to revisit that after, I think, knowing what city council was doing with some of their meeting times and dates and all there. So Mackenzie, would you like to address item 7.3?
Council did take action at the last regular meeting to move their meetings to the second Thursdays instead of the, is that right, second? Yes, instead of the second Tuesdays. So the recommendation before the board was, in order to expedite the process of EDC request, that you all take the place of where the planning and zoning meetings were held, which was the first Tuesday? I wasn't here then, hold on.
The first Tuesday.
First
prior to-
Tuesday,
I
okay,
don't know what
sorry.
the planning and zoning meeting was, so.
First Tuesday.
It doesn't matter, they don't exist, so let's talk about us.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying, is that you all, speaking of you, you all would take the place of when the planning and zoning meeting was, which was the first Tuesday.
That would not allow us time to get on the council's agenda, would it?
Yes.
Since all items are due the Monday before we meet?
If it's an internal request, and we will have already had all the documentation that we need so that you all can review it at your meeting, that's an internal request. That requirement is for outside requests. So the agenda our agenda would have to be posted that Friday, so whatever action you all took on Tuesday would be very simple, just to put the item over into the council packet.
Is there someone specifically requesting this, or?
No, not specifically. The reason that the council moved their meeting is so that the city attorney could be present. He has conflicts on Tuesdays. He's unable to attend. And so this came before you all just to expedite the process for when people request things to be on the agenda. It helps it move along a little bit faster instead of having to wait 3 weeks, 2 weeks for it to go before the council.
And this would be a permanent change, right?
Not any more permanent than it was as it is now. I mean, if you guys decide that it's not working and you want to change it on month 2, you can do that.
I think it's good we kind of keep it the way things are, because people get in their mind the fourth Tuesday of every month there's an EDC meeting, or first Tuesday, right?
So council's gonna be the second Tuesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
And you're proposing we are the first Tuesday?
Yes.
The main purpose behind it, I believe, was just to expedite an individual's response time with the city government, to cut down on being 3 weeks down to being 1 week, to having a decision made. That was the primary move behind it, that we did that in the Planning and Zoning Commission so that people who are wanting to make a move with property could be expeditious with that service to them and not be a municipal slowdown. That's the purpose behind trying to move it behind council or prior to council.
What are the attendance requirements based on the bylaws of the WEDC?
As far as majority, just be a majority. Is that what you're asking?
Meaning
Or you're talking about if you
so many
miss?
meetings and you're
I don't know the answer to that.
involuntary.
I don't know the answer to that. I know that the provisions that govern council attendance are prescribed by local government code. I don't know if the Economic Development Corporation, I'm not sure if that's governed. I don't, to my knowledge, it's not governed by local government code. I don't know if it's established in the EDC bylaws.
I know that's a main concern for Jan as well, from that perspective, from previous responses that we've had. Is there some way we could get a definite opinion on that at some
Well,
point? So that,
Well, it's first, you're saying now us first Tuesday, not first Thursday. That's correct. Okay.
I do know that even
does that
with.
clear it up for you?
Well, it could be better.
I do know.
First Thursday would be a no
Yeah, I think that,
four times a year.
yeah.
Tuesday, depending on what time my Wednesday board meeting started, I just have to get up earlier on Wednesday morning to head to Boston or wherever my.
Wherever you have to
meeting
go.
might be.
Even within the local government provisions, attendance provisions for city council, there is an exception in there for an excused absence. So even if a city council member had to miss multiple meetings in a row, so long as it was excused, then they would be exempt from the attendance requirement of the local government code. Again, I don't know what the EDC bylaws say specifically about that, but you guys also have authority over the EDC bylaws if you so choose to change them.
Would you like clarification on that, Jan, before we made a motion?
Will we have access to those bylaws right away, or does anyone have a conflict on, I mean, when you signed on, it was for the fourth Tuesday of the month. Does anybody have a conflict moving from the fourth to the first?
My question was only a reflection of, I don't think it'd be good to be bouncing back and forth, whatever we pick it should stay at.
I agree. It's difficult enough to remember, okay, which day is this and what meeting do I have?
It makes no difference to me. It doesn't, I have to have the meeting whether it's on a Tuesday or 4th or 1st. It was just a recommendation. We see it a lot when people will file an application for EDC and then they'll call the next day and say, okay, when I have my receipts ready. I'm like, nope, you gotta wait for council. Well, when is that? So that delays their development. And so the only reason I even put it before you guys really was to expedite it for those people who are making application to the board. But as far as the city's concerned, we're here either way, regardless of when the meeting's held.
Really, it's not gonna expedite the approval by council because the council's date is set, so it's not going to change. All it's going to change is they need to come to us a week earlier than,
No, because you guys would approve it on a Tuesday, council would approve it that Thursday.
okay.
So that's the same week, yeah. So there is an extreme
'Cause I've got
expedite.
second Thursday of the month, but you're saying that they're moving to the first Thursday of the month.
No.
You're saying the first
Second.
Tuesday of every
So
month, right?
EDC, the first Tuesday would be EDC. Second Thursday would be city council.
So if this passes, we'll be here next week.
That's correct. Or you could start it effective whenever you guys choose. You guys are in complete control. Whatever you guys want to do. You can, and council did that. They made theirs effective the following month to allow people time to, adjust to the change. We do need to have another EDC budget meeting probably next week or sometime really soon, because I'm on a really, tight schedule with the county.
Next week?
I think we probably would be simply because we need to review budget. Is that correct?
It would be beneficial if we could meet again before the next meeting and before council.
Next week.
Are we all hungry now?
No, I have no clue what the purpose of it is. I've listened to the discussion. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
To me, we're still approving on the second. It's not Tuesday and then Thursday. It's Tuesday, one Thursday, the next Thursday, right? Is that what I'm?
You lost me on that one.
It's 10 days
I
out.
guess if the first fell on a Wednesday or a Thursday, we would be,
So we're not reinventing the wheel. This is exactly what the Planning and Zoning Committee did previously. So I know that it works. It's just completely you all's discretion on whether or not you want to change it. If you put it to vote and it doesn't, it doesn't,
We're just trying to meet before the city council, is that correct?
that's correct.
It's close
It's
to
very
it
simple.
as
So when we
possible.
move it, we don't change it. Right?
I'm not sure what
Ideally.
you're.
So if we
Ideally.
move it to the first Tuesday of the month, then we keep it there to keep it from bouncing back and forth. and it-
Yes, yes.
All right.
Is that what you meant when you said, is it permanent? I misunderstood you. Yes, it's
That's okay.
permanent. I
I may not
apologize.
have conveyed it
I
correctly.
think he meant that would be our permanent meeting
Yes.
spot. We're not
Yes.
just changing it for 1 month and then
Yes, that's correct.
for extra meeting purposes. Okay.
I'm so sorry I misunderstood that entirely.
Is there a motion on the floor? Do we understand what we're?
Was there,
I actually look at a calendar, so y'all.
was there-
I'm
was there
not
con-
playing on my phone. I've got to physically
So we
in my
would
mind
meet,
go.
if we changed it, we would meet August 1st.
That's correct. And then council would meet August 10th.
would that give us the opportunity to use this next close meeting
For
date
budget.
for the budget?
Yes.
So it would save some time there as well.
Yes. But we can have that budget meeting on the 1st, whether or not you all choose to change the regular permanent meeting date.
Yeah.
Okay, so like in November, for instance, the first Tuesday of the month is the 7th. The second Thursday is the 9th.
Mhm.
So it could, the agenda would have already, my point is, the agenda would have already been posted the Friday prior to the Thursday council meeting. And so we're out of luck. Then they have to wait
That particular month.
that particular,
Mhm.
anytime the first falls on a Wednesday or Thursday,
The council
they're
agenda
no
would
longer
already.
meeting within 2 days, they're waiting a month and however many days.
So
So that
That's
would
correct.
happen
To
every
get to
quarter?
that meeting.
Say again, Jim, I'm sorry.
That would happen every quarter?
Depends on how many times a year the first is on a Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday. Wouldn't happen in August. Would not happen in September. Would not happen in October. Would happen in November.
So Jamie, are you looking also that if we was to leave it currently the way it is, what it reflects to, because the council meeting is changing? Are you looking at that as well? The days?
We would have plenty of time in between to get on their agenda item, so it would be,
That an EDC agenda item can be placed on the council agenda because it's an internal request. It's not like.
right, it's just gotta be by Friday.
And usually the
Not-
EDC
not
November meeting, we don't
decide
have
something on
it.
Tuesday and we get to sneak it on the agenda for Thursday.
No.
It would have had to have been on the my point is, has to have been the prior Fridays. Yes, I mean, you don't have to do the Monday before that. Is that right?
I'm sorry, I was looking at a calendar.
You keep looking, you keep looking.
Because I know that in November, sometimes there's a conflict because the meeting is on the 4th, it conflicts with Thanksgiving. And so, sometimes, we don't have them anyways in November, so,
December as well.
correct, December as well, because it falls on that 4th. So there's conflicts in November and December specifically, regardless of when the meeting is.
And the only time that would have an effect would be if we were making a recommendation to council that needed to have something decided upon at that particular date and time.
Yeah, February would be the same, we'd meet on the 6th, they'd meet on the 8th. So, I mean, it doesn't happen often, that's probably what's gonna happen twice a year, is all.
And we do.
Then it turns around and happens again in May.
We do have the option, we can put it on both agendas, and if for whatever reason the WEDC doesn't approve something, then council would just
Drop
not
it.
take action in those situations, so that there wasn't a
On
delay.
those particular months.
That's correct.
Would just be a no action or no.
Did you say September? It wouldn't help? Because if the meeting was on the 5th, and then the council was on the 14th, that would work.
Yeah, she was saying November.
Oh, November, sorry.
Whatever month I said, I've already gotten off of that.
Well,
November.
but even in November, it would be the 7th and then the 16th.
No, it'd be the 9th, because it's the
Oh, yeah, okay,
second.
second.
But on those months, if you posted it on both the agendas, then we're fine. And council could table it or whatever needed to be done if we made no decision or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yes.
I'm back to whether or not it's okay with you, Jan, and your schedule.
Well, I don't want y'all to make a decision because of my calendar or my schedule. If that's the date that's best for the city and that's best for, we just need to take action and then if it works, great, and if not, I'll make other arrangements. So, I mean, it sounds like that's what McKinsey prefers, is for it to be that close
Yeah.
together and.
It's worked extremely successful in larger cities to do it that way for most of the other subcommittees other than city council or elected positions.
Yeah, just for clarification, again, it doesn't matter to
Doesn't.
me if it's on the 4th Thursday or the first Tuesday. It was just a recommendation to you all to kind of expedite the process. I have to be here regardless, so it doesn't matter to me if it's first Tuesday or second Thursday. I truly do not have a preference in the matter. I just wanted to afford you all the opportunity to make the decision for yourselves.
The fourth Tuesday or first Tuesday? You mentioned
Correct.
Thursday again, so Thursday's not,
First Tuesday
That was
or
what it was.
fourth Tuesday.
okay.
So it truly is only 1 week on most months.
Because last month, what you requested was for us to move it to the first Thursday of the month, so that there's 1 week
Between.
in between the two. So that's why I guess I'm confused, are you?
It's Tuesday. It's always been Tuesday. If I said Thursday, it was a misspeak.
Just say what's in the minutes.
What if we moved it to the first Thursday? That way it would always be.
A week ahead, it would be a week ahead of council at all
It would
times.
always be a week ahead of council.
But Thursday was a major conflict for Jan.
That doesn't work for you, Joe.
I can make,
Fourth Thursday, she won't be able
yeah.
to make.
We don't
I
want
mean,
you
I
to
can
do
make
that.
eight Thursdays of the month,
Right.
of the year. 8 Thursdays of the month, of the year.
My calendar's gone astray at this point.
Unless joining remotely is an option. So,
She said with the EDC, we can do what we want.
Would you like that?
Well, I think if we can accommodate Jan in the process of this in the times and areas that it might be of conflict on the Tuesday, because that seems to be what's best for her is Tuesday versus Thursday, which was the prior discussion, then I would move that we move to the first Tuesday for our meetings.
I second it.
we have a motion on the floor for the first Tuesday of the month. And we have a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. One opposed and 1, 2, 3, and I abstain. It passes.
Jan, mine's not online right now, so I'm not, yeah.
We had who did the motion? You did?
I did.
You okay.
It's popping up. This is new. I like it.
That's, did your move not,
Well, I can't do anything online right now.
okay, gotcha.
Well,
Pass, so then you can't second it. So Steve actually shows he moved, that we move it to the.
sorry. Just learned how to check my email last week.
So can we have a second?
I second it.
But you can't hit the.
I can't hit the button, but.
Okay, so can you hit the
There you
button?
go.
Okay. Okay. Now everybody can.
When did this start?
Are you online?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's corrected now. It's been corrected and fixed.
Is there, like, only part of us are popping up, any idea why?
No, it's there.
Because we're still needing 3 votes. We're needing everybody to my right to be able to register a vote.
I cannot get logged in
manually do it?
Carl, did yours
No.
pop up to vote?
No.
Okay. Okay.
And I am logged in.
Okay, so, yeah, so add to that under 4, if you would register, I believe what I heard was Marcia is 4, Gary is 4, and Carl is against.
Somebody better make sure they send out advance warnings of when these meetings are.
Check your emails. Okay, moving on to item 7.4, budget discussion for the fiscal year. Mackenzie? Okay, we're gonna let you tackle this one, because there's a lot of numbers here. We are getting an early start though, so thank you. Okay.
I do have a couple of extra copies if anybody wants to put their eyes on it or look at what we're talking about. You're welcome to have copies. You're welcome. This one here, and you'll need one of those. You'll need this. Yes. There you go. All right, I'm out. That's it. That's all I got. Okay. Let's start with I gave my copy away, so sorry. Let's start with at the top, you'll see two numbers in gray. One says 950, one says 100. The 950 is the WEDC fund. That is y'all's money. It is not consolidated into anything at the city. The second group of papers that you have at the top left in the gray has a 100 by it. That is the city's fund. Everything funnels through the city, and then it gets journaled into the 950. And then we do bank transfers on the back end for the real tangible cash exchange. So on the first, starting with the 950, there's two portions of this. Everything from the green column to the right is the fiscal year 24 draft. Everything to the left is the current fiscal year end projection. So when you see FYE, fiscal year end, if you see FY, that's fiscal year. So I was asking Jan prior to the meeting, we can just talk about the draft for fiscal year 24, or we can have conversations about the draft 24 and fiscal year end projections. It is up to you all how in-depth you would like this conversation to be.
One thing that you can note on the 100 series, the expenses, those, she kindly color-coded those for us, that 142, 353, 65, 867, and 44, 575 are actually on the 950 series economic development budget. And those are spelled out, how those are broken down.
The details for those three departments are shown and illustrated on that 100 fund. And on the 950 side, it's all combined into one number. This is in no way final. These numbers are based off of fiscal year and projections. It is absolutely y'all's discretion at this point how you would like to see this move forward.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the 100.
Mhm.
So under here, under the, what is it? Monday Night Live,
Yes.
okay, are they bringing that back, or they, I don't think we currently are having that.
We are currently not having that. I know that there was discussions with two of the business owners downtown who are wanting to take that over. I believe the last conversation I have is that we're still hopeful that that can happen.
So we're leaving it at the 4,000 as a maybe?
Yes. while you guys are absorbing that, I will say one of the biggest change when you see the 950 expenditure, the expenditure budget is the one that has the 3 set of numbers for the GL account. So the first one is 950, 100, 3210. You'll see that in the current fiscal year, on the bottom section in the bold gray 950, it says EDC Director. And then if you see on the fiscal year 24 draft, all of that has been zeroed out. All of that is now going to be reflected consistently with the farmer's market and the Main Street in the 100 side. So you have the breakdown on that 100 side, but the purple under the 950 administration, 950, 100, 3237, is now where all of the EDC coordinator expenditures will be reflected. And that number is going from 110, 264 down to 65, 867. Depending on the board.
The city attorney expense, the 950-100-3210 city attorney expense on the City of Winnsboro financial statement, EDC. This is the portion of what we pay the city attorney that's allocated to the EDC's budget.
That's correct. If it is 100, 105, that is correct.
Okay.
I gave my 100 sheet away, so I'm not able to follow
It's
with
actually on the 100, but it's under EDC, and the city attorney is listed as the.
What's the
number.
second set of numbers after 100?
You're saying going down, it'd be like administrative expenses, economic development expense, and so on. It's not in the.
So you're on the
105.
you're on the 950.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
950.
So the 950, 100, 3210, that is correct. That is only for EDC.
I have another question.
Yes.
On this one, the 950, 100, 3239,
Yes.
we're increased by 12,000.
Yes. And Ms. Miller's here to talk through that with you guys.
There's an
So
increase of the budget of $12,000.
Did you want to speak to that? We were talking about.
I met with Andy today, we went over their budget, so I'll let her speak a little about that.
So, with the farmer's market, we're looking to, install, fans. So, right now, it's really hot, and, people come through and, they're walking around the farmer's market wanting to shop, and we've noticed that the later it gets, the hotter it gets. And so people kind of stop coming towards the later end of the market. Our vendors have fans that they have plugged in, but we don't have a fan system for the people that are coming in shopping. And so they're very much just like a decline. So they come really early and then come about 11 o'clock. It really dies back. And we just really think that by adding fans would really help keep people comfortable while they're there at the market. We have started offering waters and having that available whenever they come. But I do think that fans would also help. Another item that was on there is also $1,000 for new shades. So the storm actually ripped a lot of the grommets off of our wind shades on the back. It tore those up, and so we will need to replace those.
So nothing of that sort would have been covered under any kind of insurance policy at all.
Our insurance policy deductible is $250,000, so
Well.
no.
And what's the starting time of the farmer's market?
The starting time is at 8, so we begin at 8 a.m. and we go until noon.
Do people show up earlier than that? Would they like to come in?
Typically no, especially in the spring and the fall, whenever it's colder and it's dark. So this summer it's a little bit lighter, but no, it's very much 8 o'clock. People are ready to mosey in. You're talking lake, the people that are coming to the lake, and they're coming here for, their weekend or summer, or, things like that. And so a lot of the times they do like to sleep in and just come a little bit later. We've really noticed.
12 or 1 o'clock would be good.
Huh?
Like 12 or 1 o'clock.
Yes. We do notice a huge surge at around 9 to 9:45. It's just completely crowded. There's no parking. There's, you know, lots and lots
It's a
of
good
people.
problem to have.
It is a very good problem to have, yes.
I think everybody comes early because they want first choice.
I
of
think
the
that's a
goods.
lot of it too, yes. They know that if I get there early, I get everything I want. Yes, very much.
So on the 12,000, I guess we crossed out the fans and the shades,
Yes, so that would cover those, yes.
so we have crossed them out.
What kind of fans you get for 12 grand?
They're, well, I haven't, I mean,
It's the ones that, the invoice that I printed for you today.
that was for the shade. The windows, or the fans are, have you been to the First Baptist? So back at the First Baptist, they have a little pavilion, and they let us rent that from them, one year because it was so rainy and wet. We couldn't even have market most of the time on the street. It was just so rainy. So they let us rent out their pavilions, and they have the fans. They're those commercial exterior fans, and you're putting fans in each corner along the way, and that's going to help move the air and really keep people comfortable while they're under there.
And how many fans are you needing?
So I believe that's about 8 fans per pavilion.
And we have 4 pavilions.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's installed, right?
That
No?
I'm not positive. No, this was a price that we had gotten back from Stacy and Jake whenever they were looking into that. Yes,
Is there electrical there?
we do have electrical. Yes, that is, and
Where
it
the
has
fans need
been
to go?
not currently, but it has been wired with the assumption that in the future we would get fans.
Are they big box fans? Like,
They're more like
47
a
inch.
commercial. It's not like a box. I mean, it's gonna have like a cage, but it's more like a commercial kind of something that you would see in a greenhouse or something. So they would be up in the corners.
So Chick-fil-A, they have those people standing outside taking your order, and they have these fans that blow mist that keep them cool throughout the day.
We
Is
don't
that
have
what you're-
water there, so we wouldn't be able to do mist. But yes, the fans.
Similar to what that is, right?
Okay, so, budget's my bad. Okay, so, I don't know if you've been to Coyote Smoke, the big fans they have under.
Mhm.
So why would you not purchase one big one instead of 4 little ones for each?
Is that and I haven't been over there to Coyote Smoke. Is that the great big
Yes.
island? Those will cost way more than $10,000 to have 2 fans and I mean, it would be, those are very expensive fans. the big A
The big
fans.
ones, yeah, the big ones.
Yes, they're very expensive. Stacy did price those out back and she did say that it was very costly.
Okay, so you said this was crossed out by Stacy and them?
Stacy
so-
and Jake, yes.
So was that last year?
I believe last
Yeah,
year,
I'm
the
just
year.
saying they could have
Yes,
increased,
no,
that's what it says.
yes. Yes, that was 2 years.
So we don't know if we're still even within budget on this one?
I do plan on contacting I have, the paperwork to contact, the sales rep, but no, yes.
They may be less because everything was a lot more costly
Yep.
2 years ago.
Yes.
than Now, so could you reprice those you look at, do you need, you said 4 per person?
We would
8
need,
per
I
person?
believe,
Per
so you would
pavilion?
want, so to put them, so the way that, so we have greenhouses on our farm, so this is the only reason I know, is the way that the fan systems work is you're gonna put them at angles, so they're going to rotate the air in a circular motion. So you're gonna turn it to where it's gonna blow in a circle, and that's gonna keep the air flowing throughout. So you're not gonna have it blow straight through, you're gonna have it blow in a circular motion.
You need 4 per?
So I believe it would be 8 per, to keep that, because you would need them in the center. So you would have 2 on the ends and 4 on the ends and then 4 in the centers.
Seems how we're gonna be here next week. Would you be able to price them out?
I will make some phone
Before
calls and
next
see if
week?
I can do that.
You don't have to wait long on this.
Right?
It's speedy group.
Talk about a quick turnaround.
Yeah, right. See what I can do.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions? Cooking event, I'm just out of curiosity, what are y'all planning there for a cooking event?
Yes. So I have actually talked to somebody in the community family. She's a chef, and she came from California, and she absolutely loves the farmers market. She's a regular shopper, and I've spoken with her, and we think it would be really, really awesome to have her come out there and just a few times and sit there and cook in the center, utilizing some of the stuff there at the market. Sometimes you have ingredients that people don't even know what to do. We personally brew kohlrabi, and people have no idea what to do. And so being able to show people that this is what you can do with this is what it tastes like, these are how to store it, that kind of thing, and just talking to them and saying, to prepare this item, you would do this. And so we just thought it would be really awesome to have somebody there on site a few times during the season when we have lots of produce, and be able to show people what to do with that.
And the new shirts, that's for the vendors, for
No, it's to sell, yes, for resale, yes.
That could actually be generating income for you?
Yes.
Or do you sell at cost?
No, yes, we do generate income with those.
And that's not reflected as income anywhere on the budget?
No, not on your, no. There's the revenues, you took it over, sorry.
No problem.
I don't know if this pertains, you can just, maybe if it's not, I guess we can ask you to come back up. So the 950, 100, 7100, special projects and prospects incentives.
Yes.
So we went to 0, year to date, annual budget 114,
Correct?
to draft of 78,000. We're kind of a lot of different amounts here. $36,000 difference.
Right, so there was a decrease in the revenues, so that number is the one that I'm using to balance the bottom line to the projected revenues.
That's the full figure.
So that's the floating figure for anything over and above the standardized EDC application requests. This year, we were projecting a pretty good year, so the number was higher. After seeing what sales tax is doing this year, that number needed to be lower.
Could we define incentives on the 950, 100, 7101?
Sign grants, business grants, reimbursements for air conditioners is something we've done before.
Oh, okay.
That is the incentive applications that the businesses
Yes.
present to us that we consider. And then the marketing advertising, that is going to be the nonprofits that come to us asking for grants to advertise their events, which bring tourism and sales tax dollars.
Also,
I have a question.
Also, the Winnsboro online guide is in that line item.
I have a question. Okay, so on the marketing, year to date that's used is 9,800, correct?
Yes,
30,000 was available.
yes.
So this budget is at the end of September.
Correct.
So if there's money left over, where do we plug it?
It goes into the fund balance.
Do we keep a balance in the fund balance?
I am working very, very diligently trying to arrive at that number every day, both for the city funds and the 950 funds. But yes, ideally, anything at any given fiscal year would go to a fund balance. I hope the end goal here is to have a budget policy that defines what happens with those funds that the board would adopt and approve, so that everyone's on the same page, and whoever's administering the budget of the EDC would have a clear understanding of what the expectation is.
And then we would have a clear view of what was put into the fund balance.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't think we currently have that,
A clear view of what,
what has been put, or if there's anything in the fund balance at this time.
I could get you pretty close, but I do not have an audited fund balance for the WEDC, no ma'am.
We had budgeted for this year $1,500 for the city attorney. And then somewhere else I saw there was $1,000 that was budgeted.
not sure why they budget a city attorney fee for the EDC director and a city attorney fee for the EDC corporation. That was inherited, but I'd be happy to change that if you have a recommendation.
It looks like you did change it for the fiscal year '24. We eliminated that, and it's all just enrolled into the economic development 950 administration, correct? Maybe?
The 950, 100, 3210?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. That's what's being proposed.
Hate to backtrack, but I want a point of clarification on the incentives. Did you say we're paying for air conditioners?
If businesses come and request, upgrades or repairs.
So this is business, not
or-
residential?
Correct. Yes, it is for small businesses, to seek reimbursement for their,
Whatever happened to business planning and business expenses? I guess I'm having a hard time with that one because I just replaced 4 units and it cost me $35,000. If I knew money was available, I'd certainly go after it, but.
I'll be honest with you, I believe that's half the problem with the EDC getting out there and a lot of people not knowing what we have to offer, right? Where this one became somewhat, I guess, comical, but not comical, it was a tenant getting it versus the owner getting it.
Okay.
And it wasn't for the full amount.
Correct.
That's correct.
Who was the tenant, Steve?
What is that?
Taco Dive.
Taco
Yeah.
Bell, I can't think of the.
Taco Dive?
previously, our budget for city attorney was 1,500 and we're projected at 8,000. And then we've backed that down to 5,000 for 2024.
The reason that it is in excess for this current fiscal year is specifically due to the attorney's involvement with the Sigma incentives and determining what legal process we need to follow to fulfill the incentive request that was provided to them previously, given the current state of things. I don't know if that's gonna overlap into the next fiscal year or not, so I was just making sure that we weren't in the same situation next year that we are now.
In the sense that we didn't have money to pay the attorney last year and we had to use general fund money to pay him, or what?
In the sense that anything that's specific to WEDC that needs an attorney review gets paid for by the WEDC, not the city. And I went back and looked 5 years. Anytime I project a number, I'm gonna look back 5 years and get an average on what we've spent so that I have a pretty good idea of where we're going. That is an unprecedented number. The EDC's never spent that. This is very much a one-off situation. And comfortably, we probably could back off of the 5,000, but I needed you guys to have the background, and I wanted to receive direction from you all on what you'd like to see that number to be, if not that.
How much are we spending on the city attorney overall?
I couldn't answer that off the cuff.
Approximately, I mean,
I have 10,000 accounts that we manage within the city budget. I do not know.
okay.
I could have Holly look it up and probably circle back to you.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
I'm just curious.
That'd be a good question, if that was my question. Before you asked.
We're not acting on this budget or approving it at this time. We'll have another, do we need to have a budget workshop? Would that help you, Mackenzie, if we just have?
On the first?
in-
Yes, it would. However, I also want to be prepared for that. I don't want to bring this same exact budget back and have that. So if you guys can at least give me an idea of kind of what you're expecting and some things that I can be prepared for example, city attorney, what we, all in, kind of what we spend, just give me an idea so that we can be prepared and that workshop will be productive. And if y'all want to email me throughout, leading up to that, that's okay too. I know you guys just got this evening, so I understand that it's a lot to take in. But because it is next Tuesday, we have to get an agenda posted rather quickly. So If you could kind of gather your thoughts and get that back to me. Angie, when would you have to post the meeting for Tuesday? This Friday? So if you could have me. Yes, ma'am. The first. So we'd have to post the agenda Friday. So if you could have me an idea of any big things by Thursday.
Outside of incentives, are we, for businesses that are already established in businesses, is there anything we're doing financially with that arena that's not air conditioners? I don't know what else. I don't know what else we might be doing under incentives or anything of that nature, but I'm certainly curious in terms of what we're doing business, what money we're giving to businesses that have been here and have been in place. Of course, that's maybe because I'm a newbie and I don't know what all's been done in the past, but I certainly would like to know from that perspective, especially some of the
So I think-
inquiries I've had from
Sure.
citizens.
I think a really good snapshot would be that WEDC incentive breakdown that you guys get in your financial packet.
Okay.
A lot of those, some of those are prior year commitments. So the biggest one that we have that's kind of ongoing outside of Sigma would be Z's, and so they were given $60,000 business grants, property tax and rebates, sales tax rebates, things of that nature that are going to carry forward. So that's been the biggest one since I've been here. That's not sign
Yeah.
grants or some sort of equipment or building repair. I will say that I have a meeting with 3 different people this week who I've reached out to just because I was in their place of business and was able to open the conversation with them about the WEDC and that there's opportunities that exist. They had no idea. Stephen has said that kind of in what he's heard also. And so they're interested in what does the WEDC offer, and so I'm going to meet with
And
them.
also Main Street has its own incentive program.
They have a facade. Yeah, we put that back in last year.
Doesn't the facade come back through EDC for
Not, so
pavement?
there, we have 2. The Main Street has their own, and then WEDC will pay out of the incentive line also.
Okay. Is that good for anybody in the city and not just the downtown area?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
The Main Street sign and paint grant, they've got a $4,000 budget that they can.
Which is funded for by the WEDC.
Yeah, just so the board knows, there have been no applications. I sit on the Main Street board. There have been no applications for this in 2023. And it may or may not get spent this year at all.
And that's part of what, that 57,000, it may be that somebody is redoing the front of their building, or it's much more than $4,000 that would be available through Main Street, larger items, they would come to us for.
Cody
It may be
Smoke.
that their
Was it a recent one?
signage, new business, somebody's expanding their business.
Business grants seem to be the most popular request that I'm hearing from people in the community. There's less restrictions on just a business grant. So you guys could just, I think we did that for Cody Smoke, is that correct? I think they got just a set amount that they could do whatever they needed to for their business. Now, as a part of that, they had to bring their financials and they had to have closed session discussions on, what are you projecting? How did you get that number? What number of employees? Or, a lot of things went into the number that they were given. And so that's a very recent incentive that was given by the WEDC.
Part of my concern on that is I've seen in the past, and when I sat on the Main Street board, I'd seen a number of people who'd come into town, get the grants, and their business plan was so lacking that inside of 2 to 3 months they were gone because of it and had to fold.
I have that question.
And I have a real problem with giving city money to folks that do not have an extremely strong business plan of some sort to follow up on and be able to validate that business plan rather than just have it on a napkin like I've seen in different occasions.
Yes, sir.
So
The WEDC.
that's why my curiosity was on the incentive side of things.
We've experienced that in that this fiscal year. In fact, they granted some incentives to a business who went under just shortly after granting the incentive. So I think that they have they're familiar with it. I think in order to give teeth to situations like that, we're gonna have to revisit those incentive guidelines and put some teeth
And look
into
at
that.
them.
So that's where,
That's where I was headed with most of this, take a look at the guidelines and
Yes,
see
sir.
where we are and review them. I mean, it just broke this morning that Mark Cuban, who is on whatever TV show that is where he gives away his money, gave out $1 million in a contracted agreement with another gentleman who he found floating all over the Caribbean and not doing anything but absorbing his money.
Yeah.
And I've got a great disdain for abuse of funds
Yes, sir.
from that perspective, so, thank you.
yes, sir.
We do reimbursements, not money up front, so that helps. Now what we do is.
Keeps done.
Yes, we make a recommendation to council, council approves or disapproves our recommendation, and then, once the funds are spent and they present paid receipts.
That's what we did on Main Street, when we had a few of those come through, so.
Receipts.
I would like to see you all even consider things like, how long do you have to request the reimbursement? I have some that are presenting me receipts that were approved in another fiscal year by 12 months or better. But there's nothing in the guidelines right now to say you can't do that. So things like that that just need teeth and will help us administer what you all would like the WEDC to
No.
look like a little more
Well,
efficiently.
that was where we were failing, excuse me, in planning and zoning at times, is we just didn't have the things in place with teeth that we needed to make happen what needed to happen at times. And I think that's high criteria that we look at the guidelines that we're responsible for, especially when it comes to handling city money.
I'll send those out in email to you guys this week.
Okay, thank you.